Hello and welcome to Off the Record. Jesse and I are recording this episode on a lovely Memorial Day where we're not, I suppose, at the beach. We could both be in New Jersey at a beach right now or on a lake, and we're not. Jesse is crying a little less on this episode, hopefully. Are you?
Yeah, I'm in a very stable emotional place, as I should be.
That's good. That's good. As you get older, it's important to have your energy more stabilized and less jumpy.
My chi is balanced.
Your chi is balanced. Jesse, have you ever done yoga?
I've attempted it and realized it was not for me.
Okay. I just, in my head, as you said chi, pictured you doing yoga.
Yeah. You know, sitting still is not really for me.
Sure.
I'm sure you've noticed that in my disposition.
Yeah. I went to Home Goods this weekend, and I went to BJ's. I'm just telling you about my weekend now. And I got a lot of things for my apartment. I cooked something today on a stove for really like one of the first times in my life, all by myself, without supervision.
Wow.
I didn't burn the house down. I didn't burn myself.
I can't talk. I mean, I cooked a lot when I was your age, but I can't really talk shit because the only thing I think I ever cook in this apartment is mac and cheese or quesadillas.
Oh, really healthy stuff.
Listen, buddy. I'm just saying, sometimes you got to reward yourself after a long, hard day of dealing with emo bands singing out of tune.
Do you autocorrect? Not autocorrect. Do you tune pitch our podcast ever? You should do that, Jesse. You should do that right at this moment. Just throw in some pitch correction.
I think your voice is so atonal it won't be able to find the pitch.
Well, this is Off the Record. You can keep up with us at offtherecord.fm to subscribe or to rate us on iTunes. We are going to start today's episode with talking a little bit about a comedian named Hannibal Buress, who I actually saw live at Grace's college a few months ago. And it was pretty funny. I
have to tell you, I'm jealous. Me and the girl have been trying to go see him for quite a while now, and we just never are free the nights he's playing.
We had no idea who he was, but Grace's best friend is a big fan. And
wait, hold on. You don't watch Broad City?
I didn't, and so Grace didn't either. And after seeing this show, we have both started watching Broad City, actually.
I mean, the last season was one of the greatest seasons of television, I think, in the history of comedy.
In the history of comedy? What about Seinfeld, Jesse?
Oh my God, the worst show ever.
The best show of all time.
And then he's also on the Eric Andre show, which is amazing.
I don't know what that is.
Eric Andre was a character on Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23, another one of the greatest shows of all time.
Also don't know what that
is. But he does a really absurd show on Adult Swim where he kind of fakes this talk show type of thing. Mm-hmm. It's very good, but it's very, very hipster.
I see. Yeah, well,
it's probably a little too hip.
I really liked Hannibal Buress. It was pretty enjoyable. So what's he doing? Why are we talking about comedy on a music podcast?
It's true. I mean, I do love my comedy, but so he's using a service called Yonder, which gives you a box for your cell phone when you arrive at a show. So apparently after you get patted down to make sure you have no recording devices, you then put your cell phone in a box that is controlled by Wi-Fi, and it does not open again until you leave the venue, which is very interesting because what comedians are having trouble with is that their material gets broadcast live onto YouTube by all these idiots filming and bootlegging it all the time, and they can't test out and work through their comedy.
It's kind of like a two-part issue, right? Like part one of the issue is what if, comedians attempt to push the border, what if they push it a little too far, which in a stabilized setting, they could see oh man, this was bad. Can't do that, right? But now that could go online in a very bad way, and they could wake up the next morning to 50 pieces about him or her being a horrible human being, right?
Yes. And Chris Rock discussed this recently in an amazing interview in New York Magazine that he did with Frank Rich, where he was talking about how he can't play college campuses anymore because they've gotten too uptight when he's going a little too far with some of the comedy, and he misplaces how he should say it. And there is a thing of that, you're doing, when you're a genius like these guys and you're going off the cuff, you do sometimes go a little too far. There's times on this podcast I have to edit out when my jokes go a little too far, and then, no one knows it after Zach sits there and goes, oh, no, you got to get rid of that.
And you're not even a comedian.
I'm basically like, wow. Me and my girl keep saying there's an amateur comedy night 2 blocks away, and the guys are so bad at it that we keep saying we're just going to work on our routine and then go up there and embarrass everybody.
Well, but yeah, I mean, this, like, I did read the Chris Rock thing, and then I heard him on a podcast. I think it might have been the BS Report, but it was like very accurate. I'm not like a huge stand-up comedian person.
Oh, really?
I could be. Like, Grace and I will watch stuff on Netflix a lot, and I like it a lot, but it's not something I typically go out of my way to watch, But at the same time, like, I think the historic attraction of comedians is obviously to be funny, but to also push the envelope. And so for Chris Rock to go to a college and the college be like, well, we're paying you a lot of money to do this, but you can't push the envelope at all. It's just kind of like neutering the comedians. And it's, not that they should be pushing things to a highly insulting, terrible level, but everyone makes a mistake. But should that ruin your career forever? I don't know.
Yes.
But this is a good way. This is one good way to help stop that.
Yes. So to take it to music and what we do, as we know, groups like Yeah Yeah Yeahs and Savages are very insistent on when they play that there is no cell phone use, that they feel it harshes their vibe to see a sea of iPads filming them. So and then there's also the thing of bands debuting new material. Like a great example, so when I talked about that amazing dance show I went to the other week, Sophie, one of my favorite performers, has been collaborating recently with the pop genius known as Charlie XCX. Sophie leaked some of the tracks that she's been working on with Charlie XCX, and of course, every Stereo Gum Noisy all put it up in 10 seconds, and this service is the type of service that can stop it. Now, the problem with stopping this, though, is that we all know also that a lot of music promotion these days is you get to know and see that, I'm sure we've all had this happen, is that all of a sudden you see a bunch of your friends Instagramming or tweeting or videoing some sort of concert, and you go, hey, I didn't know that everybody liked this band, let me check them out.
Or like that night on the right before Coachella where Brand New played the first song for the first time. It was the first song of their set.
Yes.
The whole internet that likes Brand New collectively lost their shit and scoured Twitter for an hour to find live videos, right? That was something that happened. Also, someone put up a live video during the show. Like, it was insanity, right? And if you do something like this, that's gone. And I don't know that, like, if you take the actual band Brand New, I don't know that they care one way or the other, but it's a good example that like a little pandemonium was caused because it was the first new song in 6 years. And so do you want to remove that? Like, obviously it's Brand New, so that video would have been posted after regardless, but it created this whole like, whoa, I gotta see this show because they're playing new music and I want new music from them.
Yeah, so I think there is a thing is that social media and posting this stuff is an advertisement for bands who need it, but then there's also a choice that starts to become here with this new technology. I don't know that any band really needs to necessarily guard their stuff in this day and age like this, but I do get it that if, like, let's say you're doing like one of those shows where you basically play your whole record in full before the record comes out, that you could guard it if you want to just do that for a bunch of tastemakers and stuff like that. And you want everybody's first impression of your record to be your record, not your live performance of your record. I
went to see Taking Back Sunday in 2009. God, really? Maybe 2009, play a synagogue called Orsons in like the lower East Side. It was like a December show, and they did 2 performances, and they filmed it and recorded it for a DVD and CD. And since it was just like 50 or 100 people per session, everyone had to like hand their cell phones in, and that you knew that going into it. Because one, they didn't want people like recording it, but also obviously messing up the audio and video stuff with cell phones. And that was interesting, but that was on a lot lower level. And I think it would be actually a lot harder for Taking Back Sunday to pull that off in 2015, where everyone is that much more glued to their phone. Like in 2009, I bet a lot of those people still had like flip phones. I had a BlackBerry, right? Like it's different. Yes. Like we have the society. You very famously becoming Apple fanboy #1 had a BlackBerry. I still love that BlackBerry. One of the best, maybe the best cell phone I ever had.
There's still things I miss about my last BlackBerry. I will agree that keypad was truly. I still text so much less than I do.
I was destructive on a BlackBerry Pearl in class as a high schooler. Those are my times. Those were my times.
Yeah, but BlackBerry Pearl, that was my last one too.
Man, remember Justin and he was the ultimate BlackBerry fan, but when he gave up from Man Overboard his BlackBerry that the company was over.
It's true. They basically had to pry his antiquated technology from his cold dead heart.
Yep. But yeah, so I don't know what the process would be for this today, right? If you take a band like, or not even a band, I don't know. I could see like Jack White wanting no one to have cell phones at his shows, right? So, but he doesn't why does he care? He doesn't care if anyone's upset because he's still going to sell the show out and everyone's still going to go anyway. But I think how would you also there's a question of not safety, but let's say All Time Low are playing Best Buy Theater, okay? Let's take me 10 years ago, but now a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old kid that really wants to go to a show in New York City, but his or her parent or is terrified of what live music means. And they're like, I guess you can go, but you need to be back by 11 and you have to have your cell phone on. I'm probably going to text you 100 times during the set. My mother still does this as a 22-year-old to me, okay? So what happens if, everyone goes to this show? There's 3,000 kids and no one has cell phone reception. There's definitely, I think at least for underage crowds, that's a problem, right?
I didn't know this, but then I forget that you're from the Tiger Mom generation. That's the thing. Is
that close to the Jewish mom generation in general?
You not know the Tiger Mom?
No, I don't.
It's this very tethered parenting technique. My parents, I often joke, let me roam free like a wild wolf in the streets.
I don't think I'll ever have the opportunity to drive from New York to Philly or from New Jersey to Philly without my mother texting me, "Did you make it yet? Did you?"
Oh, wow, that is something. So the point I would make is that I don't just think of it like that as I think of it as somebody who's responsible for a lot of things that I can't be in touch with it, and I might not want to go because the perfect example is I run my recording studio and other producers work there and they often have to text or call me and say, and I basically have to have my cell phone on whenever those things are, and that might discourage me from going to a show because I need them to be able to get through to me.
People who can't leave their work at their job at 5 or 6 o'clock, that's impractical. Just in general, you don't have to be in music, you don't have to be in tech. It's just in general, people who don't have a job where they can leave their work at it when they leave, that doesn't fly, right?
Yeah, I'm one of those people. I can't even turn my phone off in a movie theater a lot of the time.
Oh yeah, I went to see Mad Max. Would you ever watch Mad Max, or is that a no way, Jesse?
It's never happened. But what was funny is when you went to see it. Remember, I was texting you.
Oh yeah,
and you weren't answering. I thought about it. I was like, wow, Zach answers a text in 1 minute every time. And I was like, oh, I saw on the Twitter machine he's going to a movie.
Yeah, and so movies used to stress me out so much because of the website. What happens if Brand New release a new song or something? But I gotta say, actually, it was very nice to have the Apple Watch because I didn't have to pull my phone out 100 times, and it was very nice. I could see you, and it wasn't like I was ignoring you. It was just kind of I will answer this later kind of thing, and that was nice.
So as an aside, how are you liking your wrist-wearing nerd alert?
Really liking it. As an aside to the aside, the school I went to growing up, K through 12. They do a raffle charity thing every year, and my dad put $50 in, and the school called him and they were like, "You won," and he was like, "Do I get money?" And they were like, "No, you get an Apple Watch and other stuff." And so,
oh my god!
And so I think I was then told by my father, "Your mother tried to tell me it was hers, but it's going to be mine." And then I said, "What were you going to do with an Apple Watch, Dad?" And he said, "It looks cool." I'm liking my Apple Watch though. It's making me want to. It's interesting. So there are these activity rings basically. It's making I walk a lot during the day, but I don't exercise. But if I see it's 3/4 of the way there, it's it's making me want to go walk for another mile or something, which I think is good for society in general.
That is. We have a bunch of fat slobs who don't exercise in our society.
Yeah, so I like it. That could also be you could see movie theaters ideally wanting to. What a good back. What a good back thing. You could also see movie theaters trying to like, this would be great. No one's going to pull out their phone and text 100 times in a movie theater, but like, it just doesn't seem practical in our society today, long term, to do this.
I agree. I do think though this is probably going to be a thing at comedy clubs. Like I could see, like where I go to see comedy sometimes is the Comedy Cellar, which is famous for being like the place that's at the top of Louis' show, and it's a very, very small venue, and I could totally see them doing this to everybody. Now, doing a pat down on the way in, that's a different story.
It would be nice. I mean, I don't know. I don't see this happening at like shows I go to, but it would be nice at like an acoustic or like an evening with show, where it's trying to be a little more intimate. Mm-hmm. If that could be something, because it's more like I could see this band live with like, like this 50 times, but I'm probably only going to see this acoustic show once, and that would be cool. But
understood. So you got on a little tangent about Brand New here, and we wanted to discuss what they've been up to.
Yeah. So Brand New at the beginning, I think maybe on my birthday, released a new song called Meanie, and it set the internet into a flame. And that was the same song that they had been playing live for a few days earlier. And this made a lot of people assume that either the album was like done and was going to be announced any day, or the album was just about done. And was definitely coming soon. They also were playing another song on the tour called Sealed to Me live. And it turns out the band was in the studio just last week, like a month and a half after the band was playing it live, recording the song. And so a lot of people were like, wait, is any of this record recorded even? And the answer is no one knows. And if I had to guess, me personally, I would not put a lot of money on Brand New releasing an album, maybe ever again, or this year. Just from the way the wind is blowing. I could be wrong. They could release an album tomorrow. But it made me think of, and I thought you would be interesting to talk to about this. I feel like at the end of the neon MySpace era, everyone was like, albums are dead. No more 14-song albums. Definitely albums that are no more than 10 songs long. And also, I may not even release an album anymore. Only EPs, only singles, stuff like that. Kind of before physical vinyl picked up again. And it seemed like that quickly died off and was idiotic because none of those EPs lasted as standalone things, and everyone just kept making albums, especially because record labels can charge more for an album than an EP. But I wonder, what if Brand New just releases an EP this year, or 5 singles separately, or 2 EPs, something like that? Do you think what did you think 5 years ago or whatever when that started to be a conversation? And do you think that would work now, especially with streaming? We didn't really have streaming then like we do now, obviously.
My favorite idiot moron rockers, Forever the Sickest Kids. When I say favorite, I say this as a true fan of their early work.
Yes, he really likes them, and he really likes their political views even more.
Oh God. So they announced that they were going to do 3 EPs instead of an LP.
Oh, yeah. They're actually the perfect example of this.
And I was very excited. I wrote articles just praising them because I think, especially as you're a band on the ascension, so you're not a Brand New yet, that you're a band that's trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
You're quickly picking up new fans. You don't have the mass of fans yet.
Yeah, it makes you more eventful. You think about how quick you disappear from the news these days when you put out a record at this point. It really seems like everybody I talk to is just like, how do I stay on anybody's mind when there's just this content bombardment these days? And one of the ways you do is by releasing more music more often and just always staying on people's radar. So I think in some ways this is really smart. Now, with that said, there is an immersion with an album that yes, singles are great, and I'm as we often discuss, I'm a playlister. Zach is not. I'm sitting there adding to my playlist all day the new Skrillex, Diplo, Justin Bieber hot track. And
how is that song?
Oh my God, I hate them for making me like a song with Justin Bieber, but
I thought he was kind of done. I didn't think there was.
I thought so too.
Justin Bieber.
Well, so this is the problem: is that they wrote a song. The hook isn't him singing. The hook is the instrumental, and that hook is just unbelievable. So that's why he's relevant again. Thanks, Skrillex and Diplo. Anywho, I think that there's a thing of that. Yeah, like there's people who like to consume singles, but then there's a thing of like, especially in our moody emo music scene, you want to sit there and take 45 minutes to indulge in an emotion and like hear that miserable record or hear that record that feels really good with the windows down. There's two sides to this. I don't think records are ever going to die. I think that this is going to be a thing where, like, yes, some people do this to stay more relevant, and because they don't have a full voice, they want to say. And also, I will also say, I think bands force records a lot of the time. Bands don't think about the theme of a record as much, and maybe this is something to get into at another time, but I think that this is a good way for you to exercise material that might not necessarily work on your next full length.
So to further go down that route, as you were talking, in my head I was like, oh, you know what? Also, as we've talked about, like Forever the Sickest Kids released 1 or 2 records before doing that EP thing, right? And
just one full length and 1 EP.
Right, but to reverse that. So, and here's a conflict of interest buzzing sound. Real Friends and Knuckle Puck released 3 EPs each before releasing a full length, and they did it. They like reverse built it, right? Like they were bands that were like, we don't know what the sound of our full length is going to be, so we're not going to rush it, and we'd also like to build our band and fan base, and so we're going to try to do a bunch of EPs first and see how that goes. And that, I mean, I think I can say, objectively speaking, has worked out very well for both bands, right? Like they're both popular bands, totally. and they did it their way, and they have an album and like Knuckle Puck have an album coming in a few months. But it's interesting to think about it on the scale of Brand New, where they haven't done an EP, right? And they're like a really big band, and they could potentially sell 100,000 records first week, but instead they may just not do that because maybe they don't want to release a full album's worth of material. Maybe they don't have a full album's worth of material. So it's interesting to me is the size scale difference.
They're also a band that has showed, if anything, a complete, absolute no giving of any fucks about staying in the news cycle.
Yes.
And maybe that's changing. That just because you've usually had that doesn't mean you haven't learned and haven't decided to go down a different route. To go down the point I was going to go down. So one of the things I think in music bands don't pay attention to is they just assemble a bunch of songs and they go, oh, well, a record I like, it has a ballad, then it has like the acoustic song. And I think a lot of the best records of all time have like this thing to it where like it's a consistent mood. When I did this band, Race the Sun, we did a record called The Rest of Our Lives Is Tonight. We decided to make like a conscious thing that we weren't going to do the ballad and this. We wanted to just a record where literally all we thought about when we were choosing which songs to go on it was that you roll down the windows in the summer and you crank it as loud as it goes. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is a good way, like EPs and singles and one-offs. It's a great way for bands to exercise that. Yeah, they do want to write that ballad or they want to do the weird song with a lot of feedback at the end that the pop punk bands love doing, or you want to do your grungier song. Yeah, make it a single, make it this, and then think about an album for being a more concise piece of statement that actually does have a consistent feeling to it.
Yeah, I'm going to be like curious. Like, you kind of hit the nail on the head by saying like Brand New like truly does not care. They just don't. And that's why I think it could be interesting because they're not doing it as like a marketing move, right? They're not doing it as like, oh, we're going to release 3 concept EPs and one is going to tell the story of the ocean, the moon, and the sun. That's not what it's going to be. And I'm curious then to see like how everyone flocks to it or not. Or like what the staying power of what if it's an incredible 5-song EP? I'm curious to see what the staying power of that is compared to, a normal 52-minute Brand New album. I don't know the answer, but like I think it's potentially pretty interesting if they only come out with singles or an EP versus just something that's a lot more.
Yeah. Well, consumption-wise, like I think of it this way, like we were talking about for our Sickest Kids. What I tend to do is I put on the full length that I like, and then I put on that EP I like right after. Uh-huh. And I pretty much always listen to the two of them together. And it's just like that thing. It's a consistent feeling. It's similar material. There's a little bit of growth. And I think that that's the thing is I think there is a place in consumption for people to do this.
Yeah. I like it. I mean, look, I want, like, in the specific case of Brand New, I want a record, but I'm just curious. Like, if I really like that new song, if there were 5 different sounding songs that were up to that song's caliber, but the band didn't feel like they had 6 more to make a full length, I definitely want those songs, right? And I think everyone else probably does too. I'm just curious.
Gotcha. So we have a lot of
We
questions.
got a lot. People like asking us. They like tweeting #AskOTR to ask questions about your mind, Jesse.
Dating advice too, I see.
Yeah. Well, that's what the show is about.
They have no idea what they're getting into in that one. No. So the first question is, I've helped book Dash going on the band and I's first non-regional tour in a couple of weeks, and I'm wondering what are some need-to-know tips from both me as a tour manager and them as the first tour. They'll be supporting a new album. We have some ideas on how to sell that download cards for cheap. Free download card with a purchase of T-shirt, physical CDs for 7 to 8. But I'm wondering more so in terms of what you've seen not work for bands and what does work well on a first tour. Zach?
Please do not sell a CD for more than $5. Please do not sell a CD for $7 or $8, especially as like a small band. Don't do that. CD should always be $5. Especially as a small band trying to grow and just trying to get it in the hands of fans. Also, just in general. And sometimes you can't really do anything about it. But typically, it's a lot easier for someone to give you a $5 bill than it is to get 1 5 and 2 singles, or to get a 10 and give back $3. So that's why you always typically see merch being sold for $5, $10, $15, $20, $25 instead of $23 or something like that. It's different online because it's just a credit card or PayPal, so no one really cares. But in a physical location, what if that person doesn't have enough singles and you don't have enough change? That's just like a side mark. But I really do like the free download card idea. That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. So is Thomas, and so the bands I've been working with. Like, how can we get more people to get music from us? How can we get, not in like a gross way, but how can we communicate with them more? How can we get those people's email addresses? If we print 1,000 cards and 200 of those people 1,000 people take the cards and 200 of those people give us email addresses, and then also we can give them a free copy of some kind of demo or something. That's a good trade-off in my mind. And so I do like the idea of the download cards with a purchase of any merch item or anything. Don't if people want it, and you can say like, hey, you can download these 3 songs for free, or you can buy the CD for $5 right here. Just give them the option. Maybe they're going to buy that CD anyway from you.
Well, so you kind of aped my advice, which was going to be that make sure you're starting to get email addresses with a zip code on where you're performing every single night, because there's nothing more valuable than staying in touch. It's like so funny how many bands don't believe that.
The email addresses?
That email addresses are more powerful than Twitter, Facebook,
oh, yeah.
anything else.
It's really important, like, for
yeah. But I feel like you tell people this, and they just don't believe.
Well, it seems like hard work, right?
Yeah. Well, I had a band that you and I are good friends with actively has a member who thinks I'm lying about this, that this works because he doesn't do it. And it's it's so silly because you see there was just a new published thing, like a Hypebot had it the other week, about how much more effective email is than Facebook and Twitter with quantifiable analytic data. And it's just start getting those email addresses from day one. And the one thing I'll say to you is when you're talking about maybe we get 200 email addresses, it's I think if you're getting something free, whether it's a sticker, a button, a download card from a band, then you should be getting their email address. That is not too much to ask.
Agreed.
I will also say, get a bike lock for your van's steering wheel, because robbers won't expect it. Get some sort of battery for a drop cam and put it inside your van so you can watch your van at night.
I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah, I bought my parents a drop cam for their birthdays. Seeing them watch their cats on it made me realize this is a really good thing for bands with their vans. They can see when it's getting robbed, and if they're close by.
Bands and cats, pretty similar.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, totally.
The email, and this, actually one of the last questions we've got is, this could be a good time to tie it into this, is from Christina with X's for the eyes. What's the best email blast service you've come across so far? I assume Jesse and I will both say MailChimp.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you have under 2,000 email addresses, MailChimp is free, and it's the best tool out there, so I can't recommend that enough.
Yep, and yeah, exactly what Jesse said. Under 2,000, go for it, and that's awesome. And if you do get more than 2,000, it's probably worth the money because that means there's a really good chance of getting a lot more fans in touch with whatever you're doing. Bad Timing uses it a lot. We're trying to get more active with Knuckle Puck, who've done it. Man Overboard are kind of the prime example of a band who does their newsletters really well and not too annoyingly, but when the things matter. And yeah, it's very important. Like you get emails from a lot of places if you're a band. You can get it from your web store. You can get it from Bandcamp, et cetera. And if you're a band with a popular Bandcamp page, you might have a lot of email addresses there. That's also, by the way, Jesse, I would say like the plus of sometimes doing like, you can grab our music for free for 24 hours.
Or making a sampler, making a mixtape with all your friends' bands on it, and where you all get the email addresses.
Because this music is for this. Sorry, not the music. The music is for free, sure, but also, I mean, someone may throw you a couple of bucks for it, but also you like those email addresses are potentially really worth something to you, especially if those people start to love your music. So I really like that idea as well. So MailChimp is good. You could listen to any of a million podcasts to get some kind of discount code on MailChimp as well, potentially.
Yes.
So next question is from an anonymous human being. I kind of understand why Hopeless Records puts all of their time into All Time Low because they can squeeze money out of their fans. But why do they put almost no focus on any other band on the label? On their website, they always answer asks about All Time Low, but if you ask them about any other band, they usually ignore it. It's not like the bands on the label don't realize this, considering how much shade Have Mercy throws, jokingly, about not releasing a record until 2020. This would have been a really good question for me to ignore. But as Have Mercy's manager and as Have Mercy's manager who are on Hopeless Records, I thought this would be actually a good one to answer. I want to displace one thing first. Have Mercy do often joke about, hey, wonder if anyone will hear this new song we recorded. Like, just like so anyone, I mean, it doesn't really matter. But Have Mercy released their second album under a year ago. We're not really, like, there's no rush to release a new album at this point. Like, no, I can very confidently say I and the band are not in a battle with Hopeless Records about when we're going to put out 10 new songs because the band does not have 10 new songs. And even if we did, it would not make sense to release a whole new album under 12 months from when the last one came out, when we believe that album has a lot of legs. Regarding All Time Low, I think it kind of all trickles down from this one. Like, the label has been investing in that band for truly over 10 years now, and they just had a record that has now sold well over 100,000 copies in under a month. Like, that's really impressive for an independent label. And that success should actually only benefit the Wonder Years or Have Mercy or Neck Deep. I think in terms of the social question, I think All Time Low is pretty damn popular on Tumblr. So that might be a pretty good reason why a label might be more privy to get a million reblogs on Tumblr for All Time Low. So they get more followers. So the next time they post about Have Mercy or Neck Deep or the Wonder Years, more people see that. I don't think there's anything wrong with Hopeless Records' marketing for All Time Low when it turned around and has sold 100,000 records. Pretty impressive to me. But next question is, I noticed that Pure Noise is making a big deal about including download codes in the new CD versions of The Story So Far, For Your Strong, and Census Fail albums. Are they able to double count these CD sales? If they are, thoughts? Story So Far is being sold in stores like Target, so they could have a huge first week because of this. I really don't think Pure Noise I don't think Pure Noise is double counting those. What I will say is that I think it's genius to include download codes in CDs.
Agreed.
And that's why they're doing it. They're doing it because it's smart to put download codes in CDs, because some people just buy CDs for their cars. I do not have a CD input on either of my two computers, but I might want to give the band $5 or $10 for a CD to just support them if I don't buy vinyl. But I still want that music, and I should be able to download it without having to buy a $79 extension CD input from Apple. right?
I 100% agree. I've long said that this should be just a common
Yeah.
thing.
My friend at Rise told me that they started doing this like 6 months ago, and I was like, shit, got to do that. It's really smart, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is why not try to get their email when they go to download, just to tie it back again.
Yeah, yeah, that's also just more emails. I think it just feeds the machine, and I think it's really great.
So the next question is: so Jesse has had lots of breakups apparently. Who knew?
No.
Zach maybe can help too. I know breakups are part of life and I'm supposed to grow from this and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'm a closed off person. I opened up to a girl, fell in love, and now I'm here all alone. I lost all my friends from the relationship. Some advice would be nice.
This got pretty dark, Jesse.
I mean, that's losing all your friends from it too is pretty dark. The one thing I'll say is you can't close up from this once this happens. Like, yeah, I think I've had 3 breakups in the last year and a half. I'm really good at it.
And besides that time you cried last week, you've held up pretty well.
I'm really good at relationships, if anybody's counting. Anyway, you have to be able to open up again. The solution is not to close off. The solution is to learn from each relationship. What I like to do when I break up with somebody each time is I like to try to write down some lessons I learned that I won't make mistakes again. So, for example, these may be like, don't date a girl on, antidepressants. Maybe don't date somebody who's really violent. Don't date somebody. I can't personally date people who scream because when people scream at me, I don't react well. Like I just close off and my brain goes to hell.
Don't date someone that doesn't respect you and your passions, and don't date someone whose passions you don't respect.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street where none of us are perfect.
I see. I've known that one for a long time, but the number one thing I see that when the bands are having trouble in their relationships at the studio, it's that they're dating a passionless person who begrudges them for their passion.
Right. It's very important to realize that while your life might be hard and you think things are unfair to you, it's very possible that your partner feels the same way, and it's important not to be too selfish.
This is very, very true stuff here. Getting
very big,
real.
You know, it's like
remember when we pledged not to do dating advice on the show?
I know. I don't know what happened. This might be the end.
We love our listener. We love our
do.
listeners.
We want to help you guys.
The rules.
We want to help you guys and girls with everything. Clearly.
So the next question from @punks@rex. It seems like the sound in pop punk evolves every 5 years or so. Where do you guys see it going next? Where do you hope it goes?
Remember that thing about Attila last week where I mentioned that they put like that one part of musical scariness in between all the breakdowns and the screaming? I imagine that's where we're going.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you really think TA checks score?
No.
I mean, even Chunk No Captain Chunk, who kind of had a little bit of that on their Pardon My French record, abandoned that for their new
Did you know they
record.
released a new album?
Dude, I've been rocking it all week.
Is it? I had no idea. How is it?
It's not as good as
very
the last
apparent
one.
to me that I have changed my focus with the website when I learned last week that Chunk No Captain Chunk had a new album out for the first time.
Yeah, it's not as good and exciting as the one before. The one before was truly a masterpiece. Joey Sturgis killed it.
Seems to be getting less of a push from the label.
Yeah, I mean, the production's a little boring to me.
I see.
And the production on the last one was just, it was nonstop excitement.
Yeah, and plus, great album name.
I mean, pardon my French. Come on. Anyway, to get back to that, I don't think that's where it's going. I think in music right now, I don't think we've discussed this. My big theory on music today is everything's in a divergent stream. So while you're seeing like EDM get more and more produced, then you have another thing in EDM where it's getting more and more raw and minimal. And in the pop punk world, what I'm seeing is you're getting this even more raw thing. Like I'd even noticed, like I had a band the other week, like when I went to like master their record, they like literally wanted it so raw that they basically just wanted no mastering, really. Like, and then you get this thing where it's also going super, super polished, or then you have like the mumblecore thing, like where these bands are getting really into grunge and not pronouncing their vowels as well as other bands are getting really slick and really produced. And I think that's a thing. Now, I will say this, though. If you wanted to bet where most of it's going, there's undoubtedly, to me, a thing that, bands like Hum and this neo-grunge thing, that's definitely an influence that's going on. And I know for a fact one of the biggest bands in the scene just now made a record with a huge grunge influence. So I'll say that.
If we're talking like strictly pop punk, I think that there was a large conversation recently of like, does everything need to sound like Newfound Glory's Sticks and Stones? And that's not an insult. That's more like, does everything need
Totally.
to sound like it's 20-year-olds writing about their heartbroken, or can music progress? Like, and I think a very good example of this would be like The Greatest Generation by the Wonder Years, where there's still a pop punk band, but the lyrical content is not, I hate this girl, she broke my heart, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot more like seeing what pop punk can grow into. And I'm not saying that this is something that's never been done, but I think if some of these bands that have been around for a while want to like continue to make music, the music needs to grow with them instead of being like fake, right? And so I think that's hope. Like what I'm hoping for is someone that's 22 and hopefully will be listening to pop punk for a very long time or forever. I hope music continues to grow with me, and I think the Wonder Years are a good example of what that could mean.
Yes. I will also say this, though, to push back. It's not every 5 years. This evolution, as you watch it, is something that's just happening on I see it happening over like half a year at this point. But like, you don't even go to your thinking. I totally agree about the Sticks and Stones thing, is that there's been kind of like this block of bands that kind of like just appreciate.
Right. Like, why does it have to start and stop there?
Well, but so here's the interesting thing, though. Before that, it was like Screeching Weasel was what every band had to be.
Right.
And like, which was also like kind of a Green Day Dookie thing. Like a Green Day Dookie would be the larger record, but really everybody would say that Green Day Dookie was just a more polished version of what Screeching Weasel was doing.
I feel like there's,
and Green Day admitted it.
Yeah, I feel like there's always one band that comes out with a record that like is quote unquote like scene changing, you know? Like let's just say the Upsides. And then a lot of bands for the next 2 years are trying to make that record. But that there's a potential that the band that made the big record that changed stuff, like the Wonder Years, have evolved, right? And then it's like, oh, well, we got to evolve now, too. I think it's a lot of like, oh, they did something. That's what we should try to do. Oh, wait, they're already done doing that. Kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement. So the next one is from at the Asylum venue. And it says, how do merch deals work between band label, e.g. label sells merch and pre-orders? Well, seeing as I was reading one of your contracts this week, my
partner just sent an updated one of that 10 minutes ago.
Oh, good.
So it's different per label. Bad Timing, our deals are 50-50 deals with all of our artists musically. And so are our merch deals. So if we sell 100, if the profit on our merch sales are $100, then we get $50 of that dollars, and the artist that we're working with gets $50. Some bands sign, as we've talked about in the past, have PPD deals where they get a percentage of music sales, and they might also get a percentage of merch sales, or they might get 50-50 in merch sales. Again, it really depends on the label and the artist, but I think for 50-50 labels, it's always pretty much 50-50. It's pretty standard, frankly.
But we should also say, so what most labels say in their contract is they get somewhere between 1 to 2 merch designs.
Yes.
That they get to take a cut off of per record.
Yes, exactly.
And so
Bad Timing, like if we're putting out a record by a band, we're going to request that we get 1 or 2 T-shirts for the cycle of this band, and we'll split the money. But we're not asking for 10. We don't ask for 10, exclusive shirts or something like that. And
does any label get 10?
No, just an example. I think
3 is the most I've ever seen.
3 or
right?
4. It depends, frankly. Sometimes it's a good thing. It's like that's kind of like the same reason why bands have merch in multiple stores, because it's like there's someone that might see, like for Knuckle Puck with Rise Records, it's going to be worthwhile for us to have merch on their store, because a lot of people may see it there for the first time and like a design, and they could see a lot of money, and the band could see a lot of money from it, or it could help recoup their contract faster. It doesn't need to be a negative thing unless they're like, we need all your exclusive merch rights.
I think it's a negative consumer thing. One of the things I battled with Man Overboard was like, and we figured out a way to do it with like the old website design we had, is that I wanted there to always be a way for the fans to see every merch design we have, but then get sent somewhere else if they did it. Because like, I think it does help that like when, like I think about when I purchase band t-shirts, and as we've discussed, you and I both buy a lot of them, is that like I want to look at everything they have and then choose the one for me. And it's just like that thing. And then you see 2 weeks later when you're in a Hot Topic store or something that there's a better design that's no fun and breeds fan animosity. I think it's really important to try to show everything that you have and the options to the fan.
That's fair. That's fair. I do think, though, like for the Hot Topic thing, for example, like those are exclusive designs. So
yeah, but you can still, if you have a WordPress site, you can still show that in your store if you build your store off of WordPress. Definitely. That links into a different backend.
Right. I agree.
So Dan Shazam asked, as a follow to not last week but 2 weeks ago's episode, does Fluence have some sort of ratings-feedback system?
Yeah. Yes, they do. But like, I don't think I would have any ratings because I've never clicked through to work with anyone, and I've never rated anyone's work that I've worked with. But yes, they do have a rating system. So if you have interest in, I don't know, asking someone that you think might help you with your music or your work, and they've done stuff before, you can see about ratings there.
So then, at Anthony Fartino,
do you get the joke?
Okay. I do. It's that insipid music.
I kind of like that guy. Like I think it's annoying, but I like it.
I think his shtick really blows.
Okay, that's fair.
What are your thoughts, opinions on Riff Raff's business and marketing? I think it's awesome. I am not so into his new jacked look.
What is that? Like he has muscles now?
Oh my God. He gained something like over 100 pounds of muscle in like 6 months or something crazy. Vice did an
Is he trying to replace The Rock?
I mean, he's getting that big.
So he might be in Furious 8 is what you're telling me.
Oh God, I hope not.
You know, I'm going to see Riff Raff this summer.
Is he
on the band's Warped Tour.
Oh wow! So that means I'm going to see him if I come.
Oh, are you going to come?
I might go. I might go to a New Jersey or New York date if I'm around.
Okay, let's hang out with Riff Raff,
dude. I got to tell you, you know, like there's a couple Riff Raff songs that really speak to me as a 37-year-old guy.
Huh.
But let me say this. His look is very, I don't want to say unique, but his look is very special. And I think it's one of the things he does better than I see most bands in pop punk doing is he sees the stupid looking things people wear at his shows and make sure he has his name and his logo on every single piece of merch that one of these, I don't want to say too mean things, but one of these freaks of nature would wear.
Silly millennials.
You know, I call the girl I'm dating. She really gets disturbed when I keep calling her a silly millennial.
I don't get disturbed when you call me a silly millennial. I am one, Jesse.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you know your place.
Yeah. I don't really know anything about Riff Raff except that I am excited to watch him at Warped Tour this summer on the main stage.
Do you not watch his Vine videos or his Instagram videos?
No, I don't follow. The only real celeb I follow on Instagram is I follow two: Taylor Swift and Zach Braff.
You're a basic bitch.
That really can't be the title. Oh, it's a shame.
Oh man. His Siberian Husky is very cute. He makes great vines and great gifts with it.
What's going to happen with the Husky on Warped Tour?
He brings it out on tour with him.
That's going to be hot for the poor dog.
Well, I think he takes good care. He's got money, dog.
Yeah, it's true. Air-conditioned bus bed just for the pup.
Yeah. So our next question is from @Sky McElroy, which is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to make a career out of artist management? Most of our advice we did on a episode called Goes to College and Gets a Job that we aired a few months ago.
Yes.
The rest of the advice I have in this book that I just updated has a new edition.
You are trying to sell.
Jesus. I don't know what happened. I think that's a little too vague, and we really do. I think we've done that one to death. I think you should listen to those two episodes if you haven't.
And what we will say, and here's a teaser for our fine listeners.
Yeah.
Next week, as we said last week, we will be having a very special guest, Mr. Mike Mowery, on the show. He is an artist manager for Outer Loop Management. He knows a lot of stuff, and if you have any specific questions about managing bands that sell tens and hundreds or thousands of records or signed to large deals, headline festivals, or have to deal with drama or like anything. And this would be a good show to send us your questions. Tweet #AskOTR. We're excited to have a long conversation with Mike. He's become a good friend of mine. He actually spoke at my college last week, and that was awkward. It wasn't awkward. I was just like in the front row. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And that was funny. But yeah, Jesse and I are pretty excited for the episode next week. I think that we might maybe every 6 weeks, maybe going forward, try to switch it up with an episode. We really had a good time when we had Jeff and Run for Cover on. And we hope this episode with Mike is good as well.
Yeah. Maybe we should save that question for next week.
Yes.
I think that's all of our questions, isn't it?
That is. We could potentially have recommendations.
We should do that. What do you have?
So, recommendations. I have been watching Veep in Silicon Valley, as I have for several years. Do you watch Silicon Valley? You do.
So Silicon Valley is consistently the show I look forward to the most each week aside from when Mad Men was on and until Halt and Catch Fire comes back on next week. But
do you watch Veep or no?
So what I would do with Veep every time, I don't love Veep.
Oh, man.
It's too Seinfeld for me, even though I love the political shows.
Like Veep to me is like a beautiful cross between Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm, but like it really like it's very enjoyable, frankly, to see like a woman lead role in that because it comes from like a different angle, and I love it.
What I do, I always see everything of Veep. I've seen none of this season, but that's like one of the few shows that I just like wait till it's done, and then there's like one day I like binge it while I clean the studio or something.
Totally. So yeah, I really have been liking those two shows. I think Silicon Valley is like way better this season than last season. I liked last season.
I loved last season too. I do miss the character based on Peter Thiel.
Oh yeah,
that character was amazing.
Very good. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this season. I think it's great. I would recommend it. I posted a thing called The Podcast I'm Listening To on the website a few weeks ago, but I've started listening to a few new podcasts, and some of these might be up your alley and some might not. I've started to, Jesse, do you listen to any like shorter podcasts, like the ones that are like 15 to 25 minutes?
Yeah, well, Freakonomics, Planet Money, those are short.
Right, so I never like really listened to any of those, and then I was like, I'm going to make a conscious effort because I listen to too many podcasts as it is, but I think it would be like, I'm pretty adverse to trying something new for the first time, So I was like, I don't want to listen to like a business talk show or whatever, and I was like, so I subscribed to Reply All, Planet Money.
Yeah, Reply All doesn't do it for me.
I like Reply All. 99% Invisible. Like, a bunch of these pretty popular podcasts that are shorter. Mm-hmm. And I found myself to actually be enjoying them all. Sometimes I don't love them, but if they're only 15 or 20 minutes, it's like no biggie, which I think is part of why they're enjoyable. There's another show on The Verge called What's Tech. And so those are some new podcasts I'm listening to. I would recommend, Jesse, are you listening to the second season of Startup?
Of course I am.
Have you been liking it?
I've been enjoying it a great deal. You know what? I will go as far as say there is no podcast I look forward to and drop everything more. Like that and Tim Ferriss are the two that I'm like, when I see that pop up on my home screen, I'm very excited and thinking about how I get to listen to that as soon as possible.
I'll recommend to you, there's a show on 5x5 called Pipeline. And the first episode of it had Tim Ferriss on. It was just 2 weeks ago. It was pretty good. It was nice to listen to Tim Ferriss in a not 2 hour spurt. It was just 40 minutes. And it was pretty enjoyable, actually.
Yeah, but the last episode of Tim Ferriss with that marriage couple was truly amazing.
So, yeah, I was pretty apprehensive about this new season of Startup when they teased it at the end of season 1. I was like, I don't know about this. I just fell in love with it so much I didn't want it to end, kind of thing, But I have found myself very much enjoying this season, and I really recommend it to anyone. You have anything that you like currently?
I'm reading the Elon Musk book that came out last week.
Oh, I didn't know that. What's that called?
It's called like Tesla, SpaceX, and something. Huh. It's very, very good. It's basically like that becoming Steve Jobs' book, but instead it's becoming Elon Musk. And,
interesting.
Very interesting guy. And at the same time, there's like people have been tweeting some of the quotes of like how ridiculous he is. Is like, there's like one quote. He's like, I feel like I should start dating again. What do women need? Like 10 hours a week or something? I think I can make that work. And you're like, oh man, dude. Oh man. That's rough.
Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the quest for a fantastic future.
That would be it.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. All right. Well, thank you for listening to Off the Record this week. If you like what you heard, you can fully subscribe to us at offtherecord.fm or on iTunes. Leave us a review with what kind of dating advice you would like to hear us give you in the future. Maybe don't do that. Thank you, and we'll be back next week with Mike Mowery. Please tweet us questions via hashtag AskOTR. Thanks for listening.